And I'm live a little bit early. If you're watching this in the future, because you're watching all of I'm working with a temporary laptop, a borrowed laptop, and just trying to get things right before I start. Not the best lighting, but without lighting, I just go blue, which is spooky, but not very helpful. Oh, hello. We've got somebody here. Hello. Hello. Just sitting up, making sure everything's good. I think it's oh, no, I thought there was a demon at the door, but it's in front of me. What are you doing, sweetie? Want to come up and talk to people? I've got Flora with me here. Hey, what's up? Well, today on the internet news, I called some people in the Auckland COVID protest idiots, like in a quote tweet, not even at them. And I got told a lot of things that I really needed to hear to like develop my life. Like how being on a benefit is wrong, but also it means I had it easy during lockdown. And that I should learn some life skills. And what was the other thing? Make better choices. Yeah. So I'm really taking all of that to heart. And like, I think I'm just not going to have a mental illness anymore. Like, I got one because it was cool because of the Evanescence song Bring Me to Life, brackets 2002, question mark. But now I'm kind of regretting it as a career choice. Kind of thinking maybe I should have gone to dentist school. But anyway, that's my personal news. Christ, no wonder these people were at the COVID rally. They do not understand what illness is at all. They probably thought we went into lockdown like for leprechauns or something. It would be that level of, why are we doing this? That's not real. If we went into lockdown for leprechauns, I would assume there was something behind it. Anyway, we're gonna do Villette. We're gonna recap the chapter La Terrasse, which we did yesterday. This had a lot of Lucy Snow. It's had a lot of Lucy Snow being very goth. It had Dr. John talking to Lucy about whether she was a Catholic or not now, after that priest got really... and we got like an account of what happened when Lucy passed out. Like, the priest came out and found her. He called Dr. John, and Dr. John brought her to the house. It's not a great story. So there's one aspect that I didn't actually address during the chapter, which was that Lucy really wanted to bring up... Lucy says, I could see that Dr. John was thinking, or Graham, or whatever it is she's calling him at the moment. You know, I could see he was deep in thought, and like, I knew he wanted to talk about Ginevra Fanshawe. He's in love with her. He wanted to talk about her. I was about to say something super casually because I knew that he would want to talk about her, and that's great. Turns out he didn't. But Lucy, there's only one person who really wants to talk about Ginevra Fanshawe with someone else. And in that conversation, it wasn't Dr. John, was it? I swear, I read this book first when I was like 24. And I thought, oh, there's a lot of gay subtext in here. That's interesting. Nothing about Charlotte Bronte that I knew at the time really made me think there would be. And now that I'm reading it as a fully formed adult, kind of, I'm just like, oh my gosh. I don't know if Charlotte knew it while she was writing it, but this is, yeah. Hang on, I'm just going to mess around with a couple more settings. Try and make this a little bit easier to see. Hello, Flora. I kind of like how it looks, though. Kind of looks like I've been on a TV program or something. Teens have, like, run my image through some filters to make an anime music video. Nope, that ain't subtext. Not to our modern understandings. And here comes Flora. So there are 3 of us here. Hang on, I'll have to angle the screen down. Hello. Hello, madam. Oh, are you here to read Villette by Charlotte Bronte? Yeah, she's purring. She loves it. So, my throat does still hurt. But, talking doesn't make it hurt more. Like, it doesn't hurt more when I'm talking than when I'm just sitting with my mouth shut playing Vampire again. I don't know why. Some elaborate form of self-torture. Okay, I don't know where to put my arm down so I can start the chapter. We are just going to do our best. Yeah, okay. Okay, so Lucy's thinking about how Mrs. Breton, once she finds out that Dr. John's in love with Ginevra Fanshawe, she would have pronounced Ginevra imbecile or perverted or both. Well, I thought so too. Yep. I started writing a letter to a girl I had a crush on in high school because, like, in therapy, and they say that you should write letters and don't send them. And it just started with, like, fuck you, bitch. I don't like you. I haven't changed very much. Anyway, that night, instead of crying myself asleep, I went down to dreamland by a pathway bordered with pleasant thoughts. Oh, got number 3. Nick, how's it going? At work? No, I had completely unfulfilled, I don't know if attraction's the word. High school was a very confusing time. And then eventually, in due course, realized that I could not be gay, and it was very sad. Lawn billiards. Interesting. I did very little. No, I didn't. I washed my hair. Yeah, Flora's here. That's why I had to angle everything down, and my arms are very uncomfortable. She's joining us. Good timing, though. I was, like, right about to start the chapter. Now. Chapter 18. We quarrel. During the first days of my stay at the terrace, Graham never took a seat near me, or in his frequent pacing of the room approached the corner where I sat, or looked preoccupied or more grave than usual. But I thought of Miss Fanshawe, and expected her name to leap from his lips. I kept my ear and mind in perpetual readiness for the tender theme. My patience was ordered to be permanently under arms, and my sympathy desired to keep its cornucopia replenished and ready for outpouring. That's not rude. It just means that, say it's not? It's not rude. Thank you, sweetheart. It's not rude. It's just like, oh, I'm waiting for him to talk about Ginevra so that I can be like, yeah, I'm so sympathetic to you. Talk more about her. Oh, your Avi's too little for me to see. But I'll try and remember to look at it. Lawn billiards. Petanque. Hey, Josh. Josh too. That's how I think of you, and I'm sorry about it. Yeah, they're very sweet for things that are so horrible. Josh, all you've missed is basically the first sentence. That Lucy has been waiting and waiting for Graham to talk about Ginevra Fanshawe, the hottest girl in school. Hey, there are 5 now. Oh, there are 4 now. Yeah. At last, and after a little inward struggle, which I saw and respected, he one day launched into the topic. It was introduced delicately, anonymously, as it were. Your friend is spending her vacation and travelling, I hear. Friend, forsooth, thought I to myself, but it would not do to contradict. He must have his own way. I must own the soft impeachment. Friend, let it be. Still, by way of experiment, I could not help asking whom he meant. Meow. He had taken a seat at my work table. He now laid hands on a reel of thread, which he proceeded recklessly to unwind. Ginevra, Miss Fanshawe, has accompanied the Chumleys on a tour through the south of France? She has. Do you and she correspond? To which Lucy says, it will astonish you to hear that I never once thought of making application for that privilege. Gosh, she's such a bitch. I love it. You have seen letters of her writing. Yes, several to her uncle. They will not be deficient in wit and naivety. There's so much sparkle and so little art in her soul. He wants to see her letters. He wants to know if she's dumb on the inside and the outside. Fanshawe or... I never know how to pronounce those names. I always know there's a trick. She writes comprehensibly enough when she writes to Monsieur de Bassompierre. He who runs may read. That's her uncle. In fact, Ginevra's epistles to her wealthy kinsman were commonly business documents, unequivocal applications for cash. Oh, Lucy. And her handwriting? It must be pretty, light, ladylike, I should think. Dr. John is imagining Ginevra's handwriting with boobs on it. It was, and I said so. I verily believe that all she does is well done, said Dr. John. And as I seemed in no hurry to chime in with this remark, he added, you who know her, could you name a point in which she is deficient? She does several things very well. Flirtation amongst the rest, subjoined I, in thought. Such a catty chapter. When do you suppose she'll return to town? He soon inquired. Pardon me, Dr. John, I must explain. You honour me too much in ascribing to me a degree of intimacy with Miss Fanshawe I have not the felicity to enjoy. I have never been the depository of her plans and secrets. You will find her particular friends in another sphere than mine, amongst the Chumleys, for instance. He actually thought I was stung with a kind of jealous pain similar to his own. Lucy, where did you get that idea? This is such a good sentence. Oh, excuse her, he said. Judge her indulgently. The glitter of fashion misleads her, but she will soon find out that these people are hollow, and will return to you with augmented attachment and confirmed trust. I know something of the Chumleys. Superficial, showy, selfish people. Depend on it, at heart Ginevra values you beyond a score of such. You are very kind, I said briefly. A disclaimer of the sentiments attributed to me burned on my lips, but I extinguished the flame. I submitted to be looked upon as the humiliated, cast off, and now pining confidant of the distinguished Miss Fanshawe. But, reader, it was a hard submission. Yet, you see, continued Graham, while I comfort you, I cannot take the same consolation to myself. I cannot hope she will do me justice. De Amal is most worthless, yet I fear he pleases her. Wretched delusion. De Amal is the, he's not a colonel, he's like a captain. He's the young army guy who is Dr. John's rival for Ginevra's affections. Ginevra doesn't want to marry him because she just won't be bourgeoise. She can't be middle class. She's gonna have to marry a captain. And he's got like 3 mustache hairs because he's 17 or something. Although that part I think I made up. Captain Colonel. Hi. I cannot recap it because it's just a really catty conversation between Lucy and Dr. John about who else? Their shared crush, Ginevra Fanshawe. But Dr. John has just said, I cannot hope that Ginevra will do me justice. De Amal, the captain, the other guy, is most worthless, yet I fear he pleases her. Wretched delusion. And Lucy goes on, my patience really gave way, and without notice, all at once. I suppose illness and weakness had worn it and made it brittle. Dr. Bretton, I broke out, there is no delusion like your own. On all points but one, you are a man, frank, healthful, right-thinking, clear-sighted, firm-buttocked. Oh, whoops, doesn't say that. On this exceptional point, you are but a slave. I declare, where Miss Fanshawe is concerned, you merit no respect, nor have you mine. I got up and left the room very much excited. Ooh. I think the lady does protest too much. I think she's really mad at Dr. John for being in love with Ginevra because who you know, Fanshawe. Oh yeah. No, it's just written Fanshawe but with an E in the book. She's mad at Dr. John for feeling exactly what she feels. Just in love with this dumb hoe. No offense to hoes, but this you know, this basic bitch. There we go. That's a better term. She's frustrated. Your fiancé is firm-buttocked? That's wonderful. Well done. A firm-buttocked fiancé is all we can really ask for in this world. This little scene took place in the morning. I had to meet him again in the evening, and then I saw I had done mischief. He was not made of common clay, not put together out of vulgar materials. While the outlines of his nature had been shaped with breadth and vigour, the details embraced workmanship of almost feminine delicacy. Finer, much finer, than you could be prepared to meet with, than you could believe inherent in him even after years of acquaintance. Indeed, till some over-sharp contact with his nerves had betrayed by its effects their acute sensibility, this elaborate construction must be ignored, and the more especially because the sympathetic faculty was not prominent in him. To feel and to seize quickly another's feelings are separate properties. A few constructions possess both, some neither. I doubt I'll be anyone's fiance. If it hasn't happened by now, probably won't happen. I might be a financier. Lucy's trying to spin this in such a good way. She's like, Dr. John, while manly and firm-buttocked, he had feelings, like a woman. Real feelings, just like a woman. But he couldn't pick up on feelings in other people. But that's okay, because that's a lot of people. Dr. John had the one gift in exquisite perfection. And because I have admitted that he is not endowed with the other in equal degree, the reader will considerately refrain from passing to an extreme and pronouncing him unsympathizing, unfeeling. On the contrary, he was a kind, generous man. Make your need known, his hand was open. Put your grief into words, he turned no deaf ear. Expect refinements of perception, miracles of intuition, and realize disappointment. This night, when Dr. John entered the room and met the evening lamp, I saw well and at one glance his whole mechanism. To one who had named him slave, and on any point banned him from respect, he must now have peculiar feelings. That the epithet was well applied and the ban just might be. He put forth no denial that it was so. His mind even candidly revolved that unmanning possibility. He sought in this accusation the cause of that ill success which had got so galling a hold of his mental peace. Amid the worry of a self-condemnatory soliloquy, his demeanour seemed grave, perhaps cold, both to me and his mother. And yet there was no bad feeling, no malice, no rancour, no littleness in his countenance, beautiful with a man's best beauty, even in its depression. It's like so hot when he's being emo. When I placed his chair at the table, which I hastened to do, anticipating the servant, and when I handed him his tea, which I did with trembling care, he said, "Thank you, Lucy," in as kindly a tone of his full, pleasant voice as ever my ear welcomed. No malice, no rancor. Looked even hotter when he was brooding. He was just like, Can't believe Lucy said she doesn't respect me. I really didn't think she had enough brain power to think that much about anything. Is probably what he's thinking. I don't know. For my part, there was only one plan to be pursued. I must expiate my culpable vehemence, or I must not sleep that night. This would not do at all. I could not stand it. I made no pretense of capacity to wage war on this footing. school solitude, conventual silence and stagnation. Anything seemed preferable to living embroiled with Dr. John. As to Ginevra, she might take the silver wings of a dove, or any other fowl that flies, and mount straight up to the highest place among the highest stars, where her lover's highest flight of fancy chose to fix the constellation of her charms. Never more be mine, never more be it mine to dispute the arrangement. Yeah, Dr. John turned into Robert Pattinson. Yeah, I will never expiate my culpable vehemence. Ever. That would vex me. When I'm vexed, I get vehement. I get so vehement. Frankly, it's culpable. The next morning, sometimes I feel the need to expiate it, but depends if my vexation was justified. I love the comments. I really do. I love every single one. Long I tried to catch his eye. Again and again that eye just met mine, but having nothing to say, it withdrew, and I was baffled. After tea he sat, sad and quiet, reading a book. I wished I could have dared to go and sit near him, but it seemed that if I ventured to take that step, he would infallibly evince hostility and indignation. I longed to speak out, and I dared not whisper. His mother left the room, and then, moved by insupportable regret, I just murmured the words, "Dr. Bretton, I'm sorry." No, she doesn't say that. What did she say? He looked up from his book. His eyes were not cold or malevolent. His mouth was not cynical. He was ready and willing to hear what I might have to say. His spirit was a vintage too mellow and generous to sour in one thunderclap. He's just like so perfect. It's crazy. The only problem is, record scratch, we're in love with the same girl. Villette and cinemas. Whenever, cinemas become a thing. See, tricky question, actually. Tricky question. No, I was trying to make a pun and then I completely forgot what I was thinking about. Dr. Bretton, forgive my hasty words. Do forgive them. He smiled that moment I spoke. Perhaps I deserved them, Lucy. If you don't respect me, I'm sure it is because I am not respectable. I fear I am an awkward fool. I must manage badly in some way, for where I wish to please, it seems I don't please. Doctor, truly. Soz. Sad face emoji, crying face emoji, angel emoji, heart emoji. Be cool. Where I wish to please, it seems I don't please. Of that you cannot be sure. And even if such be the case, is it the fault of your character or of another's perceptions? But now let me unsay what I said in anger. In one thing, and in all things, I deeply respect you. If you think scarcely enough of yourself and too much of others, what is that but an excellence? You have a bad case of loving me. Doctor, ain't nothing I can say. Exactly. Can I think too much of Ginevra? I believe you may. You believe you can't. Let us agree to differ. Let me be pardoned, that is what I ask. Do you think I cherish ill will for one warm word? I see that you do not, and cannot, but just say, Lucy, I forgive you. Say that to ease me of the heartache. Put away your heartache, as I will put away mine. For you wounded me a little, Lucy. Now, when the pain is gone, I more than forgive. I feel grateful, as to a sincere well-wisher. I am your sincere well-wisher, you're right. Thus our quarrel ended. Basically, yeah. I'm sorry I called you an idiot, but you can think your girlfriend rules, I can think she sucks. That's fine. Friends again. Reader, if in the course of this work you find that my opinion of Dr. John undergoes modification, excuse the seeming inconsistency. I give the feeling as at the time I felt it. I describe the view of character as it appeared when discovered. Ominous. Ominous. He showed the fineness of his nature by being kinder to me after that misunderstanding than before. Sorry. I hoped I would never have to do this again. Well, I mean, I hoped I wouldn't have to do it on camera. This is anesthetic throat spray. It doesn't hurt to talk, more than not talking, like I said. That is true, but it is making me cough. It's good stuff. It's good. I mean, it works, but at what cost? Being kinder to me after that misunderstanding than before. Nay, the very incident which, by my theory, must in some degree estrange me and him, changed indeed somewhat our relations, but not in the sense I painfully anticipated. An invisible, but a cold something, very slight, very transparent, but very chill. A sort of screen of ice had hitherto, all through our two lives, glazed the medium through which we exchanged intercourse. Ooh. Those few warm words, though only warm with anger, breathed on that frail nerve. About this time, it gave note of dissolution. I think from that day, so long as we continued friends, he never in discourse stood on topics of ceremony with me. He seemed to know that if he would but talk about himself, and about that in which he was most interested, my expectation would always be answered, my wish always satisfied. It follows as a matter of course that I continued to hear much of Ginevra. That is in quotes. I have no idea if anesthetic throat spray is useful in that sense. That's a disclaimer. I'm sure there's a way to use it without going, it's the worst thing in the world, it's horrible. But I'm not quite sure what it is. But it's a lot cheaper than the amount of strepsils I was going through. And I'm a lot less likely to choke on it in the middle of the night. So, hooray, throat spray. I'm not quite sure what Flora's looking at. Ooh, it's Niobe's eyes. Sorry if that was loud. Come on, sweetie. Good girl. There you go. Yes, exactly. If you had an anesthetic right in the back of your throat, you could drink as much hot coffee as you wanted, as fast as you wanted. It's the dream. Ginevra! He thought her so fair, so good, He spoke so lovingly of her charms, her sweetness, her innocence, that in spite of my plain prose knowledge of the reality, a kind of reflected glow began to settle on her idea, even for me. Yeah, really, Lucy? Really? Oh, you started to think a little bit about her yourself? That's cool. That's interesting. Still, reader, I am free to confess that he often talked nonsense, but I strove to be unfailingly patient with him. I had had my lesson. I had learned how severe for me was the pain of crossing or grieving or disappointing him. In a strange and new sense, I grew most selfish and quite powerless to deny myself the delight of indulging his mood and being pliant to his will. He still seemed to me most absurd when he obstinately doubted and desponded about his power to win, in the end, Miss Fanshaw's preference. The fancy became rooted in my own mind more stubbornly than ever that she was only coquetting to goad him, and that at heart she coveted every one of his words and looks. Hooray, throat spray would be a good slogan. Promise you, talking like this does not hurt more than not talking. I know it sounds like it does. Sometimes he harassed me, in spite of my resolution to bear and hear. In the midst of the indescribable gall-honey pleasure of thus bearing and hearing, he struck so on the flint of what firmness I owned that it emitted fire once and again. I chanced to assert one day, with a view to stilling his impatience, that in my own mind I felt positive Miss Fanshawe must intend eventually to accept him. Positive. It was easy to say so, but had I any grounds for such assurance? The best grounds. Now, Lucy, do tell me what. You know them as well as I. And knowing them, Dr. John, it really amazes me that you should not repose the frankest confidence in her fidelity. To doubt, under the circumstances, is almost to insult. Now you are beginning to speak fast and to breathe short. But speak a little faster and breathe a little shorter till you have given an explanation. A full explanation. I must have it. Oh, we all get a little bit. A little bit. What's a word for panting that's less like a dog and more like a lady romance cover? Whatever. We get a bit like that when we talk about Ginevra. Don't worry about it. You shall, Dr. John. In some cases, you are a lavish, generous man. You are a worshipper, ever ready with the votive offering. Should Père Silas ever convert you, you will give him abundance of alms for his poor, you will supply his altar with tapers, and the shrine of your favourite saint you will do your best to enrich. Ginevra, Dr. John. Hush, said he. Don't go on. Hush, I will not, and go on I will. Ginevra has had her hands filled from your hands more times than I can count. You have sought for her the costliest flowers, you have busied your brain in devising gifts, the most delicate. Such one would have thought as only a woman could have imagined. And in addition, Miss Fanshawe owns a set of ornaments, to purchase which your generosity must have verged on extravagance. The modesty Ginevra herself had never evinced in this matter, now flushed all over the face of her admirer. Nonsense, he said, destructively snipping a skein of silk with my scissors. I offered them to please myself. I felt she did me a favour in accepting them. She did more than a favour, Dr. John. She pledged her very honour that she would make you some return, and if she cannot pay you in affection, she ought to hand out a business-like equivalent in the shape of some rouleau of gold pieces. A thank you token that you can give out in exchange for a gift. No, I mean, thanks for the gift. I love it. I'm definitely going to keep it. I'm not going to marry you, But here's a thank you token. Now we're quitsies. I love the idea. But you don't understand her. She's far too disinterested to care for my gifts, and too simple-minded to know their value. He doesn't mean simple-minded in a learning disability way. He means like, oh, she's a simple country girl, ingenue. I laughed out loud. I had heard her adjudge to every jewel its price. And well I knew money embarrassment, money schemes, money's worth, and endeavours to realise supplies had, young as she was, furnished the most frequent and the favourite stimulus of her thoughts for years. Nothing wrong with knowing what your jewels cost, Ginevra. Oh, yeah. Fluttering. Frankenstein. A flutter. Pining. Lusting. Pining. Fluttering. Thrilling to their words sometimes. That's what we've learned from novels so far. Biting? Questionable. We've only really heard about it in the context of Dracula. But it might show up again. We don't know. He pursued, you should have seen her whenever I have laid on her lap some trifle. So cool, so unmoved. No eagerness to take, not even pleasure in contemplating. Just from amiable reluctance to grieve me, she would permit the bouquet to lie beside her, and perhaps consent to bear it away. Or if I achieved the fastening of a bracelet on her ivory arm, however pretty the trinket might be, and I always carefully choose what seemed to me pretty, and what of course was not valueless, the glitter never dazzled her bright eyes. She would hardly cast one look on my gift. To which Lucy says, then, of course, not valuing it, she would unloose and return it to you. No. For such a repulse, she was too good-natured. She would consent to seem to forget what I had done, and retain the offering with ladylike quiet and easy oblivion. Under such circumstances, how can a man build on acceptance of his presence as a favourable symptom? For my part, were I to offer her all I have, and she to take it, such is her incapacity to be swayed by sordid considerations, I should not venture to believe the transaction advanced me one step. And en loose? But just before we read the final paragraph, I just want to say Ginevra is a genius for having figured out a way to accept presents, even expensive presents, from men in, olden time, in such a way as not to say thank you for the present. Here are some sex tokens that you can, I owe you my hand in marriage, or, a flash of ankle, or a daguerreotype of my foot. I really admire Ginevra for having that little art of like, oh, this present, I suppose I just ladylikely forgot about it and happened to keep it, and I don't owe you shit, actually. They just lay them on her lap while she, all unthinking, casually keeps them and has them valued. I admire her for that. But, Lucy's just taking the conventional view. If she's accepted all these presents, she probably owes him something. Dr. John, I began, love is blind. But just then a blue, subtle ray sped sideways from Dr. John's eye. It reminded me of old days. It reminded me of his picture. It half led me to think that part, at least, of his professed persuasion of Miss Fanshaw's naivety was assumed. It led me dubiously to conjecture that perhaps, in spite of his passion for her beauty. His appreciation of her foibles might possibly be less mistaken, more clear-sighted than from his general language was presumable. After all, it might be only a chance look, or at best the token of a merely momentary impression. Chance or intentional, real or imaginary, it closed the conversation. The end of the chapter. He's just like, Lucy, shut up, shut up, shut up. I know what she's doing. Shut up. Just let me think what I'm thinking. So, thank you guys for being with me for this chapter. It's been a very interesting little Lucy just are hurling the gifts. No, gifts! Don't put shit on my lap. How dare you? It's been a really interesting chapter. It was kind of like a bottle episode, you know. It's just Dr. John, Lucy, talking about Ginevra. That's it. Just a small kind of intimate chapter. Where Lucy shows a lot of insight. Dr. John shows a little bit, maybe, of insight that's maybe imagined. And both of them, you know, are unwittingly giving away quite a lot. Oh no, Nick, don't expiate your culpable vehemence. Not if it vexes you. You mustn't be vexed. We all know what happens. You die leaving behind a baby. I think that's how babies happen. Somebody gets so vexed they die and they leave behind a baby with the same name as them. I think. So yeah, thanks very much. And I'm going to go over Limited Ice Block. Thank you very much, Evelyn. And I will see you guys not tomorrow because, maybe tomorrow. But tomorrow's Monday, so you should be watching Joshua Marchant's live stream of the book Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Because this week, I think, he may be using the props that me and Evelyn posted up to him. So hopefully he's got the props and he's using them. You should absolutely be tuned in at about 2 p.m. New Zealand time tomorrow. I cannot wait to see him wearing some of that stuff. Incredible. It's going to be so beautiful. So thank you, everybody. Wash your hands. Be good to yourselves. Be good to each other, but also yourselves. And let's hope this throat clears up.